The cantina on Nexus 7 reeked of synthetic alcohol and alien sweat. Rhea Chen kept her hood up, shoulders hunched as she nursed a glass of water at the far corner booth. The 17-year-old human had learned to make herself small in places, like this neutral trading posts where dozens of species mingled, traded, and sized each other up like predators at a watering hole. Another round for the Vorthic delegation. The bartender's mechanical voice cut through the ambient noise at the central table. For towering reptilian aliens laughed, their scaled hides gleaming under the dim lights. Each stood nearly 8 feet tall, with muscular frames that spoke of generations bred for warfare. Rhea's escort, Captain Martinez, leaned across their table. "Remember the briefing," he whispered. "You're here as part of the Cultural Exchange Initiative. We're trying to show them humans can integrate peacefully." She nodded, though her fingers unconsciously traced the scar along her left forearm, a souvenir from the acid storms of Neo-Detroit. Growing up in Earth's post-collapse wastelands had taught her that peace was a luxury few could afford. The largest Vorthok, his crest adorned with combat trophies, noticed her staring. His yellow eyes narrowed as he whispered something to his companions. They laughed, a sound like grinding stone. "Problem?" Martinez asked, following her gaze. "Maybe." Rhea's voice carried the flat tone of someone who'd learned to read danger in the wind patterns of toxic storms. "The big one's been watching me since we walked in." The Vorthic warrior stood, his massive frame casting a shadow across half the cantina. He approached their table with the confident swagger of an apex predator, his taloned hands flexing at his sides. "Human," he growled in heavily accented galactic standard. "I am Kreshtar, combat champion of the Vorthic Third Fleet. Your species claims to be from a death world, yet you look like soft shells hiding in your shells." Other conversations died. The cantina's mixed clientele, insectoid clef merchants, ethereal Zentai diplomats, and mechanical construct delegates all turned to watch. Some pulled out recording devices. Martinez stood slowly. "We're not looking for trouble, warrior. We're here on diplomatic business." Kreshtar's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. "Diplomacy, from Deathworlders?" He leaned closer to Rhea, his breath hot against her face. "I have heard the stories. Earth's gravity that would crush most species. Atmospheric toxins that burn lungs. Predators that hunt in packs." His crest flared. "But I see only a small female, weak and afraid." Rhea met his gaze without flinching. In the ruins of Chicago, she'd stared down radiation wolves twice his size. "You should listen to the stories more carefully," she said quietly. "Should I?" Kreshtar's talon shot forward toward her throat, a strike meant to demonstrate dominance, not kill. Among his people, it would force submission. Rhea's hand moved, not the calculated response of a trained fighter, but the fluid, instinctive reaction of someone raised where hesitation meant death. She caught his wrist mid-strike, her fingers wrapping around scales thick as armor plating. For a heartbeat, surprise flickered in Kreshtar's eyes. Then she pivoted, her body coiling like a spring, compressed by years of surviving Earth's unforgiving embrace. Her free hand drove upward into his ribcage with the force of someone who'd learned to kill mutated bears with improvised weapons. The sound was like breaking kindling. Kreshtar's roar of pain filled the cantina as he crashed backward into a table, clutching his shattered ribs. The silence that followed was deafening. Martinez stared. The other patrons stared. Even the mechanical bartender's optical sensors focused on the small human girl who stood calmly, brushing dust from her jacket. "You struck first," Rhea said simply, her voice carrying across the silent room. "I just finished it." News traveled fast through the hyperspace communication networks. Within 6 hours, footage of the incident had reached a dozen core worlds. Within 12, it was trending on the galactic infonet under the hashtag #DeathWorldDemo. Rhea sat in the sterile medical bay of the diplomatic transport olive branch, watching the feeds scroll past on her datapad. The comments ranged from fascination to horror to outright fear. That wasn't even an adult human. Kreshtar was a decorated warrior. How did she move that fast? This is why Earth should remain quarantined. Dr. Assault, a tall Zentai with iridescent skin, ran another scanner over Rhea's knuckles. Minimal bruising, She observed in her melodic voice, "Your bone density is remarkable." "Standard for someone from the ruins," Rhea replied, though she felt anything but standard right now. The weight of representing her entire species pressed down like the crushing atmosphere of Venus. Captain Martinez entered with Admiral Vexthara, a four-armed Centaurian who commanded the sector's peacekeeping forces. The Admiral's expression was unreadable, but her hands were clasped in what Rhea recognized as the Centaurian gesture for deep concern. "Miss Chen," Admiral Vexthara began, "the Vorthic High Command is demanding your immediate extradition for assault on a military officer." "Assault?" Martinez's voice cracked. He attacked first. "We have 30 witnesses, including 17 different species with recording devices." The Admiral agreed, which is precisely the problem. She gestured to the air, and a holographic display materialized showing galactic news feeds. "Half the galaxy is calling for humanity to be reclassified as a hostile species. The other half wants to hire humans as mercenaries." Rhea closed her eyes, remembering her grandmother's stories about the old world before the climate wars, before the collapse, when humans were just another species struggling to find their place among the stars. "What do you need me to do?" "The Galactic Assembly has called an emergency session." Admiral Vexthara explained. "They want to hear from you directly. Some species believe humans are too dangerous for integration. Others think you're the key to solving several ongoing conflicts." "And what do you think?" Rhea asked. The Admiral's four hands moved in a complex pattern: respect, caution, and something that might have been hope. "I think that boy barely used a fraction of his strength, and you still hospitalized him with one blow. But I also think you showed remarkable restraint. A true predator would have killed him." Through the viewport, Rhea could see their destination growing larger: Harmony Station, the massive diplomatic hub that orbited between 3 star systems. It was designed as neutral ground, its architecture incorporating elements from dozens of civilizations. Crystalline spires from the Zent-I homeworld jutted alongside the angular metal frameworks, favored by the constructs. Living coral formations from the aquatic pelagics curled around traditional stone masonry. "My grandmother used to say that humans are storytellers," Rhea said quietly. "Every scar tells a story. Every skill we've learned came from surviving something that tried to kill us." She stood, watching the approach of the station that would decide humanity's future. "Maybe it's time I told them our real story." Captain Martinez frowned. "What do you mean?" Rhea turned from the viewport, and for a moment, Admiral Vexthara saw something in the young human's eyes that made her understand why Earth was classified as a death world. It wasn't cruelty or aggression, it was the quiet, unbreakable determination of someone who had looked into the abyss and refused to blink. "I mean, I'm going to show them that humans aren't just survivors," Rhea said. "We're protectors, and sometimes the galaxy needs both." Part 3, the weight of Word's assembly chamber on Harmony Station, was a marvel of diplomatic architecture, a sphere large enough to house representatives from nearly 200 different species, with each delegation section adapted to their environmental needs. Aquatic species occupied transparent water-filled pods, while high-gravity races sat in reinforced sections designed to accommodate their massive frames. Rhea stood at the center, on a platform that could be seen from every angle. The weight of thousands of eyes, optical, compound, photosensitive, and mechanical, pressed down on her. She wore her best formal clothes, but they couldn't hide what she was: a child of Earth's ruins, marked by scars and hardened by necessity. "State your designation for the record," intoned the Assembly's AI moderator, its voice carrying in wavelengths audible to all species present. "Rhea Elizabeth Chen, 17 years old, born in the Neo-Detroit Reclamation Zone, Earth." Her voice carried clearly through the chamber's acoustics. A ripple of movement passed through the assembled delegates. Too many of them. Earth was more legend than reality, a world so hostile that merely surviving there marked someone as dangerous. Asterisk. Speaker Kolthik of the Vorthic delegation rose from his reinforced platform. The massive reptilian wore the regalia of his people's warrior caste, but his eyes held the calculating intelligence of a politician. "Young human, you stand accused of using excessive force against a decorated officer of our fleet. How do you answer?" I defended myself, Rhea replied simply. Your warrior struck first. I responded appropriately. A chorus of chittering erupted from the insectoid cleft section. Their translator rendered it as, appropriately, you nearly killed him. Rhea turned toward the sound. On Earth, nearly killed means showed restraint. If I'd wanted him dead, he would be. The blunt honesty of her statement sent another wave of unease through the chamber. Admiral Vexthara, watching from the observer's gallery, noted how different species reacted. The Zentai seemed intrigued, their empathic abilities probably sensing the truth behind Rhea's words. The mechanical constructs recorded everything with typical efficiency. But the predator species, the Vorthuk, the Rachnery Star Hunters, the territorial hegemony all showed signs of barely concealed aggression. This is exactly what we feared, declared Hierarch Zephes of the hegemony, his crystalline form refracting. The chamber's lights into prismatic patterns. Humans are too violent for civilized space. They should remain quarantined on their death world. Quarantined? Rhea's voice carried a dangerous edge. You mean imprisoned? Contained, Zephes corrected. For the safety of all. Rhea looked around the chamber, taking in the representatives of dozens of species. She thought of her grandmother's stories, of humans who had once dreamed of walking among the stars as equals. Tell me, Hierarch, how many of you have actually been to Earth? Silence. That's what I thought. Rhea's voice grew stronger. You've all heard the stories, seen the classifications, read the reports, but none of you know what it's really like. She gestured to her scarred arms. You see these marks and think violence. I see them and remember learning to survive acid rain at age 8. You call us dangerous because we're strong. We became strong because everything else on our world tried to kill us first. Delegate Murdith of the aquatic pelagics activated her translator. But surely you understand our concern. If one untrained child can defeat a Vorthik warrior, I'm not untrained, Rhea interrupted. I've been training my entire life. Every human has. We train from the moment we can walk. Because on Earth, the weak don't live to see their next birthday. She paused, letting that sink in. But here's what your reports don't tell you. We don't just learn to survive. We learn to protect. The chamber's attention focused entirely on her now. Even the background hum of environmental systems seemed to quiet. Every human child learns to fight because someone has to stand between the monsters and the people who can't fight back. We don't see violence as a first resort, we see it as the last option when everything else has failed. Rhea's gaze swept across the assembled delegates. You want to know what makes humans dangerous? It's not our strength or our speed or our ability to survive in hostile environments. It's the fact that we'll use all of that to protect others, even if those others are afraid of us. For the first time since the session began, the chamber fell completely silent. The recess that followed Rhea's testimony buzzed with intense debate. Delegates clustered in species-specific groups, their conversations creating a cacophony of different languages, harmonics, and communication methods. Some used pheromone clouds, others bioluminescent displays, and a few relied on quantum-encrypted data bursts. Rhea found herself in a small observation lounge adjacent to the main chamber, staring out at the binary star system that provided harmony. Station's power. The two suns danced around each other in an eternal orbital embrace, a reminder that even the most different entities could find balance. That was quite a speech, said a voice behind her. She turned to see Envoy Talyera of the Zentai, her opalescent skin shifting through subtle color patterns that indicated thoughtful consideration. Unlike many species, the Zentai were naturally empathic, making them valuable mediators. Did I make things worse? Rhea asked. That depends on what you consider worse, Talyera replied, settling into a chair designed to accommodate her elongated limbs. Half the chamber now sees humans as noble protectors. The other half sees you as an even greater threat than before. Through the transparent aluminum viewports, Rhea watched maintenance drones performing routine repairs on the station's solar collectors. Their movements were precise, efficient, peaceful, so different from the survival dance she'd learned in Earth's ruins. The hegemony is drafting a formal motion to classify humanity as a galactic threat. Talyera continued. They're calling for your species to be contained on Earth indefinitely. Meanwhile, the Coalition of Free Worlds wants to offer humans membership. and military contracts. And what do the Zentai want? Talyera's skin patterns shifted to display complex emotions: hope, concern, and something like recognition. My people have a saying, the strongest trees grow in the harshest winds. We've watched dozens of species join galactic civilization. Most come seeking safety, prosperity, or advancement. Humans are the first to come offering protection. A soft chime indicated the session would resume in 5 minutes. As they walked back toward the chamber, Talyera placed a gentle hand on Rhea's shoulder. Whatever happens next, remember that you've already changed things. The question is whether that change will be for better or worse. The chamber's atmosphere had shifted during the recess. Rhea could feel the tension like humidity before a storm. When she retook her position at the center platform, she noticed that several delegations had moved, some closer, others farther away, as if her words had created invisible lines of allegiance and opposition. The assembly recognizes Speaker Kolthak of the Vorthok, announced the AI moderator. The massive reptilian stood, his earlier political calculation replaced by something more personal. Young human, you spoke of protection, but Kreshtar was not threatening innocence, he was testing a warrior. Your response was disproportionate, was it? Rhea asked. Your warrior assumed he knew my capabilities based on my appearance. He struck without warning, intending to dominate through superior force on Earth. We call that a predator's mistake. And what would you call your response? Rhea met his gaze directly. Education. A new voice interrupted, deep, resonant, carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed. I would call it remarkable restraint. Every head in the chamber turned toward the newcomer. Admiral Kreshvar, Supreme Commander of the Vorthok War Fleet, entered through the diplomatic entrance. His massive frame dwarfed even his species mates, and the battle scars covering his hide spoke of decades of combat experience. Admiral. Speaker Kolthak's voice carried surprise. You were not expected. My nephew's education prompted me to review the combat footage personally, Kreshvar replied, his penetrating gaze fixed on Rhea. Young human, demonstrate your stance when you struck. Rhea hesitated, then shifted into the position she'd used instinctively, weight balanced. Center of gravity low, one hand positioned to grab, the other coiled to strike. Predator's bane. Kreshvar said quietly, a technique from our most ancient martial arts, designed specifically to counter larger, stronger opponents. How do you know this form? I don't, Rhea replied honestly. I've never seen Vorthok combat techniques. Then how Perth taught me, she said simply. When you grow up fighting things twice your size and 3 times your strength, you learn to use leverage, timing, and precision. You learn that survival isn't about being the strongest, it's about being smart enough to end the fight quickly. Admiral Kreshvar studied her for a long moment, then turned to address the full assembly. Honored delegates, my nephew challenged what he believed was prey. Instead, he found a predator who chose mercy. This human could have killed him. The angle of her strike, the force applied, everything was perfectly calculated to disable, not destroy. His gaze swept across the chamber. That is not the behavior of a mindless threat. That is the action of a warrior with honor. ***. 3 months later, Rhea stood on the observation deck of the UES Determination, humanity's first official diplomatic vessel. Through the reinforced viewports, she could see the azure marble of Earth hanging in space, beautiful, scarred, and forever changed by its children's acceptance into galactic civilization. The integration hadn't been easy. The Assembly's final vote had been close, 847 in favor of provisional membership, 623 against. With 31 abstentions, humanity was granted a probationary period of 5 years to prove they could contribute positively to galactic civilization. Captain Martinez joined her at the viewport, his uniform now bearing the insignia of the newly formed Human Diplomatic Corps. The Zentai Embassy just confirmed their request, he said. They want human advisors for their conflict resolution teams, and the Vorthok. Admiral Kreshvar has formally invited human military observers to their war college, apparently. They're fascinated by our intuitive combat adaptations. Martinez shook his head. 6 months ago, they wanted us quarantined. Now they want to learn from us. Rhea smiled, remembering her grandmother's stories about the early days after first contact, when humans were seen as curiosities at best, threats at worst. What about the hegemony? Still pushing for restrictions, but they're in the minority now. The Coalition of Free Worlds has offered us full membership once the probationary period ends. Martinez paused. There's something else. The Assembly has approved the formation of a new peacekeeping division, the Protective Services Corps. They want you to head the human contingent. Me, Rhea turned from the viewport. I'm still just 17. You're the girl who showed the galaxy that humans fight to protect, not dominate. The one who turned our greatest perceived weakness, our violent nature, into our greatest strength. Martinez's expression grew serious. The job comes with responsibilities, though. You'd be training humans from all over Earth, teaching them to represent our species in some of the most dangerous situations in the galaxy. Rhea thought about the ruins of Neo-Detroit, where she'd learned that strength without purpose was just destruction. She thought about the chamber on Harmony Station, where she'd spoken for an entire species. Most of all, she thought about her grandmother's dream of humans walking among the stars as equals. What kind of situations? She asked. Hostage rescues on high-gravity worlds, evacuation operations in toxic environments, search and rescue in radiation zones. Basically, all the jobs too dangerous for other species. Martinez smiled grimly. The kind of work that plays to our strengths. Through the viewport, Earth continued its slow rotation, showing the green patches where the reclamation zones were slowly healing the planet's wounds. Somewhere down there, children were learning to survive in the ruins, just as she had. But now, maybe some of them would have the chance to do more than just survive. When do we start? Rhea asked. The first training facility opens next month, orbiting Titan. We've got volunteers from every inhabited continent, former military, disaster response specialists, and kids from the reclamation zones who grew up like you did. Martinez paused. The galaxy's watching to see what humans do with this opportunity. Rhea nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders like a familiar coat. It was the same feeling she'd carried since childhood, the knowledge that someone had to stand between the monsters and the innocent, that someone had to be strong enough to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. But now, instead of protecting just her fellow survivors in the ruins, she'd be protecting entire worlds. Then let's show them, she said quietly, what Deathworld children can do when they grow up.